Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another devlog for Dauphin, my 2D RPG about a marine biologist trying to save the ocean and its inhabitants. In this episode, I want to bring you along with me on a pretty typical weekend to show you how I attempt to balance time for Dauphin, family, projects, really everything, hopefully including some time to just kick back as well. My weekend starts just as early as my weekdays. I'm joining you here at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning after a 5:30 alarm. Woke up, took the puppy out, and tucked him back into bed, made some coffee, and I'm just sitting down at my desk. The way this is working now with the puppy is that my wife and I are alternating caring for him during his morning routine. He needs a lot of loving between about 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. before his first nap, and trading off there gives us each a chance to stick to our own routines a few times a week, which is nice. That said, today is puppy day for me, meaning I have about an hour before I'll go wake him up again for breakfast. That seems like the perfect amount of time for two tasks: cleaning out my email inbox and planning what feature work I want to tackle for Dauphin this weekend. Thankfully, I already have a pretty good idea for that. I definitely want to try and clean up some lingering issues with my underwater attack animations from the last devlog, and move forward to implementing a new type of attack that I'm calling the cast. My idea for the cast attack is a secondary attack for a given equipped weapon that is probably ranged and consumes some kind of resource to use. I think this will be really fun to build. For now, I am going to respond to some emails and jot down some notes, so we'll catch up in a bit. Alright, back around 8:50 a.m. now. Moose was very well behaved this morning, which was a nice change, and he is now snoozing. So this is Kate's and my opportunity to get started on our project for the day, which is our garden. Our local meteorologist has given the green light for crops to go in, so yesterday we mixed up a fresh batch of soil, filled the beds, and have everything prepped for planting. Last thing we need are the veggies, so we're going to make a run to our local nursery right now, which I'm expecting to be packed to get some goodies. Welcome back. It is now 1 p.m., chores are done, and I'm all showered and back in the office ready to finally kick off development. Garden prep was a success this morning. In our beds we ended up planting mortgage lifter and cherry tomatoes, jalapeno, serrano, and cayenne peppers, pickling cucumbers, zucchini, and we have some garlic that we planted in the fall. Still need to go get seeds for kale and green beans. Moose was outside in the backyard bothering us basically the whole time we were doing that, and he is finally snoozing now, so I reckon I have about an hour's worth of development time for this session. The goal is to clean up outstanding bugs with my underwater attack animations, remove the upward and downward facing animations altogether to see how that looks, and prep for introduction of the new cast attacks hopefully later this afternoon. Alright, checking back in at 2 o'clock here, and I'm really pleased to share that I finally fixed up my underwater swimming animation, so I no longer have any kind of weird lingering frames or transitions when you're changing direction, which is good news. That took me way too long to figure out, and I'll show you how I did that in just a second. In the meantime, the other news to share is that I have completely removed the upward and downward facing underwater attack animation. So if you click below the player, based on whether your cursor is just slightly left or right of the player's center, he will attack just left or right instead. This will take more time for me to test, but so far this actually feels really good. I don't really have any problems kind of engaging with this underwater life. And I guess what I mean is that I don't really miss those up and down attacks so far, but this is something that's going to take a while to test. Let me know what you guys think. I think so far it's a decent solution to the problem of not having an easy way to animate those types of attacks. So onto the issue I was having with my player animations. Basically, when I would try to kick off a new animation, sometimes I would see the final frame of the previously played animation come up first, which is obviously not desirable behavior. So I was taking a look at my player's animation tree, which now looks a lot different than it did before, and I realized that I was having trouble with the transitions I set up. So typically in these animation trees, you can create these transitions between animation states to define how you can travel between these states. What I realized is that I'm managing travel between these states already entirely within my state machine code, so I didn't need to worry about this here. And in fact, it was the path that was being automatically chosen between these states that would sometimes create that weird behavior. So what I just did here was delete all of my transitions, And instead of calling travel on this animation tree to actually perform these animations, I now call start, which jumps right to my desired animation. Making that change immediately fixed numerous issues I was having across multiple animations, so if you guys ever see some wonky behavior like that, maybe something to take into account. That happens to be a pretty good stopping point for me, so I think I'm going to change gears and edit this video for a little bit before giving Moose some attention. I've never been able to just film a whole devlog's worth of footage and wait to edit until the end of the week. I just lose track of too many ideas, so I'm going to try to get caught up here and hopefully join you later for another development session. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Sunday morning. Turns out I didn't end up back at my desk until late yesterday evening. Spent the afternoon with Kate and Moose, went on a few more walks, grilled out for dinner, and when I did come back to the office for a bit before bed, I decided to just edit this video a bit more and relax. Today is a new day. Kate's taking care of Moose this morning, so I have a great opportunity for an extended development session here, which should be perfect to get me started on the casting system. First order of business will be creating the cast state. Thankfully, I already have the animations done and in the engine for both above and below water casting, so that should hopefully be pretty straightforward. The fun part will be creating a cast attack for the coral wand and maybe starting to think about if I want casting to spend some kind of resource and what that resource might be. That's enough intro for now, I think. Time to get to work and see where we land in a few hours. Hey everyone, quick update here just after 7:30 with some good news about the cast state. I was able to hook up all the animations for above and below water casting and everything is looking good so far. So of course we're used to our normal attack animations which happen when you left click, but now when you right click we will see a new casting animation. And you'll notice that the player kind of at first curls up their arm and holds the weapon close to their body, and after about a second they extend their arm out, and this is the frame at which the cast will actually be executed. So the idea here is that this is a little bit of a heavier attack requiring some planning and a bit of a charge up, and overall I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out so far. Under the water, things still perform just about as you'd expect. We can of course still use our primary attack with the left click, and now cast with the right click, and these animations probably can still use some tweaking, but the whole idea is in place. The player holds the wand close to their body for about a second, then unleashes an attack after that timer's up. That was a very productive session this morning, and as a result, we are all set up to actually create a cast attack for the coral wand. I was thinking about kicking that off now, but instead I think I'll escape the chair for a bit and knock out my workout. I know I have a few errands to run today as well, so I might try and wrap those up before an afternoon development session. I'll see you then. Hey everyone, back in the office now at 1:30. Had a good workout, hung out with Moose for a bit, and ended up going to play basketball with some buddies for a little while instead of running my errands for better or worse. Needless to say, I am exhausted at this point, but Moose is snoozing again, so I think I have an opportunity for an afternoon development session here. I'm hoping to pick up right where I left off with the casting system. With animations in place and input hooked up to trigger a cast, it's time to actually create a cast attack for the coral wand. I have a few ideas for visuals, so I'm just going to start noodling around in Sprite and see where that gets me. Alright y'all, I am back with probably the final update of the weekend here at 4:30 on Sunday. I had an incredibly productive afternoon, ended up splitting my time into 2 development sessions with some time spent with Moose in the middle, and now that I'm at the end, I'm happy to report that I have a working prototype of the cast system. So first we'll take a quick look at the projectile that I created here in Sprite. This is very simple, did not take long at all, and I'm just reusing the colors from the coral wand here because this is an attack created by the coral wand and I wanted to kind of stay on theme there. What's cool about this is the animation. I actually created these little kind of tendrils that are meant to rotate around the back of the projectile. This was a very quick effect, but it ended up being really cool, and it's definitely a step up from the first projectile I ever tried to create for Dauphin. The next step was actually getting this projectile into the engine, which was really not too much trouble at all. This is just a kinematic body 2D to which I have attached an anti-corruption node. So this is going to be the node that actually removes corruption from organisms when it makes contact. Of course, we have a sprite with all the various frames laid out from the sprite sheet that we just looked at, and an animation player to control looping through those frames. If you're curious about the script on this projectile, I'm actually using a kind of one-size-fits-all projectile class that I wrote quite a while ago. I'm not sure I love the approach I took here, but in any case, really what I have is an all-important setup function here that provides an instance of a projectile with everything it needs to rotate itself, head in the right direction, move at the correct speed, and accelerate at the correct pace. The last step here is responding to that use secondary input within my Coral Wand class. So we have a hook into that here in my use secondary function, and what we're doing is starting a timer for the charge time of the cast, and when that timer expires, we are executing the cast. And all we're doing there on execute is just creating an instance of our projectile, calling that setup function, and kind of sending this thing off to the races. So at the end of the day, here's what this looks like in practice. We will target our tree here and right click to create this cast. And the first thing you'll probably notice is that I created a cool little kind of particle effect of particles moving towards the wand when you charge up that cast. I thought that was a nice little touch. And then of course that projectile will spawn kind of rotated in the direction that you have clicked in terms of your target, and it will fly off in that direction, and we'll see the little animation of those tendrils rotating around the projectile. This also works just as you'd expect underwater. We can be swimming around and decide to charge up a shot with the right click, and the projectile will fire off just as normal. And you'll notice that both above and below water, we're kind of doing the opposite thing from the primary attack where we kind of lunge towards our target. With the cast, we'll actually be pushed back in the opposite direction in which we cast it. And the idea is just that the cast is such a powerful blast that it would push us backwards. I think that's a really nice touch that adds a lot to the feel of combat. Overall, I am thrilled to have knocked this out in just a quick weekend without honestly even spending that much time behind my desk. This whole weekend was a great example of how I think you can still make progress on your personal projects even with a lot of other stuff going on in your life. All it takes is a little bit of planning and a little bit of discipline. As always, I want to give a big shout out to the folks who support Dauphin's development and this channel on Patreon. Garami supporters this month are Cody Odin, Finnick Fu Games, Mega Ombre, James Kennedy, Jess Sargo, Binary Chef, Elena, Dan, and Kyle Van Riper. Beta supporters this month are Vlad Sunny, Deluse, Happy Hippie, and Nifty Pixel. Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed this kind of different little weekend in the life video. Keep an eye out for more devlogs to come, and until then, stay safe.